I appreciate you all joining us. I definitely appreciate the patience as we conduct this investigation. And the chief will speak in a moment on behalf of Manny, but I just want to say how much the coverage has been absolutely phenomenal about his life and who he was as a person, and about our profession and what we do for a living. So we do appreciate the media's patience, and we do appreciate the stories that have been coming out. I'm here to lay out the facts of the investigation and then answer any questions after Chief Singletary talks. The facts are, on Saturday, November 2nd, Rochester Police Officer Manny Ortiz was on his way to work, 4th Platoon, driving his personal vehicle, a 2006 GMC Envoy, At 6:56 p.m., Officer Ortiz called his fiancée and told her he had accidentally shot himself and he was driving to the hospital. At 6:56 p.m., Officer Ortiz's fiancée called 911. Citizens witnessed Officer Ortiz's vehicle drifting across the oncoming lanes of traffic, going off the road and coming to rest about 100 yards in a ravine. They also called 911. Monroe County Sheriff's deputies responded to the report of a one-vehicle motor vehicle accident at 1385 Umpire Boulevard in the town of Penfield. Upon arrival, deputies discovered the vehicle into a ravine with one occupant, Officer Ortiz, inside the vehicle, unconscious and gravely injured as a result of a gunshot wound to his leg. Deputies removed Officer Ortiz from the vehicle, applied 2 tourniquets to his legs, carried Officer Ortiz out of the ravine to the roadway, where deputies were met by EMS. After evaluation by EMS declared Officer Ortiz deceased. The Monroe County Sheriff's Office investigator revealed Officer Ortiz suffered one accidental self-inflicted gunshot wound to his femoral artery when his personally owned weapon, a Smith & Wesson M&P 9mm, went off inside the vehicle, striking him in the left thigh. The accidental discharge is what led to the motor vehicle accident. Monroe County Sheriff's Office technicians and investigators recovered one empty shell casing from the passenger side floorboard, indicating one bullet had been fired inside the vehicle. A further search of the vehicle resulted in one bullet being discovered in the driver's side door panel. Both the bullet and the shell casing were submitted to the Monroe County Crime Lab for further analysis. Monroe County Sheriff's Office technicians recovered and secured the weapon found inside the vehicle. The Monroe County Medical Examiner's Office performed an autopsy and determined the cause of death to be an accidental gunshot wound to the lower extremity. We as a Sheriff's Office are grateful for the Good Samaritans who were traveling behind Officer Ortiz and stopped to render first aid. We are also thankful for the deputies, the other first responders who administer first aid, and the dozens of others of responders that helped us out at this scene. This concludes the fact pattern as we know it. I'm going to turn the podium officer to the chief at this time, and then we'll answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Sheriff. Good morning. I want to thank the community for all their support. Here we are at another trying time, another incident in the RPD that tests our fortitude, our strength, and our character. But together we will get through this with the community support. I also want to echo the Sheriff's comments about thanking the media for the coverage of who Manny was. Manny meant a lot to this department. He means a lot to this community. Our department continues to process this tragic incident, and we will do it together. I had to meet with my command staff this morning to ensure that we look out for our members. Manny was loved by many in this community and in this department. We lost a great one. Manny was a giant. We lost a great one but gained an angel. Manny was a true giant in this department. He was a cop's cop. He was a true servant of the community. Manny left behind a legacy in this department. He was a true servant of the community. He loved his Hispanic heritage, and like I said, a legacy of love, respect, and service throughout his 22 years with the Rochester Police Department, and we will continue to honor Manny's life. Like I said, we will get through this. We're still trying to process this, but we take it day by day. And with the help of the community, that's what we will do, get through this. Thank you.
We'll open it up to questions if there are any. Yes, sir.
How would the gun have gone off accidentally?
That is something we may never know. The gun could have been, he had a holster We believe the holster was in his waistband at the time. We don't know why the gun was removed from the holster, if he was adjusting it somehow like that. But the gun was recovered in the vehicle in a holster. But nothing as far as the holster indicates that the weapon went in the holster. Actually, it has a trigger guard on it. So there's going to be a few questions that we'll never be able to answer for obvious reasons. But the fact pattern shows that the weapon was outside of the holster at the time, and it looks like an accidental discharge, if you will, down through his thigh, hitting his femoral artery, unfortunately.
Since he was on his way to work, is Officer Ortiz's death considered to be in line of duty, and if so, how would that affect his name?
We're going to have those discussions with family. I'd rather not talk about that in the public right now at this point. But I think those are conversations we're going to have with the family. Like I said, they're still processing this information, and we plan to have those conversations rather soon with the family. That's what we hope to do so, yes. No. No. Manny was, he worked in the northeast part of the city, primarily for his career. I remember 19 and a half years ago when I first came on the job, I worked Clinton 1st Platoon. Manny was on the 3rd Platoon. And Manny loved teaching. He certainly, had a knack for training, and he was always willing to do what was asked of him. And he will always be remembered for that. And I think by the outpouring of support that we receive from this community, that we have received and will continue to receive, no doubt, that Manny will be remembered as such.
Just for clarification, this was his personal gun, this was not one his department issued,
That is correct. His personal Smith & Wesson 9mm.
and it happened in the vehicle.
Yes, sir. Yes, we have physical evidence. We got phone calls that were made. We got witness statements. We got a camera that was right behind the officer as he was driving to work, a dash camera from a witness having a recording when he drifted off the lane. So all this information we gave you today is the facts as we know them, fact pattern. And I just want to be very, very clear that Manny left work. We interviewed his family. He was chipper. He was happy. He was going to work. He was a little tired. He'd been working a lot of hours, but he was doing just fine. So let's put all the speculation to bed if there is any. It's a tragic accident.
Do you know how long in between the actual injury and the crash, what the time period is there?
Sure. So as we know it, Manny called his fiance at 6:56 p.m. We were called, 911 was called shortly thereafter. Our first deputy was on scene at 7:03. He was removed from the ravine by 7:10 p.m. and he was declared deceased at 7:13 p.m. I don't know. His wife just said that he'd been working a lot and that he was tired, but he was going to go to work that night, like we all do. It's a tough job, and sometimes you go to work and you'd rather stay home with the family and have a good time. I'm just saying that he left the home that day in perfectly fine spirits, ready to go to work and do his job.
Yeah, I think it speaks a lot to Manny's character. He has 22 years on a job, still working the night shift. Manny worked a lot in the bar district in downtown Rochester. He was the type of person that knew people. He was encountering. He was the type of person that would talk to anyone. There was not anything that Manny would not do for anyone. He would always speak to anybody. But I think it speaks to his will for the job. You're 22 years on. You're still working 7 at night to 3 in the morning. That says a lot about what you love about the job. So I think that really is just certainly, I think, something that Manny should be remembered for.
So this weapon has no safety device on it. You can buy that type of weapon with either. And again, we just want to emphasize, the first responders, you've seen the folks that showed out. We had 35 deputies working this case for the last, 2 days to make sure we can get as many facts to the community as possible. So we, again, do appreciate your coverage, and we do appreciate your questions. So if there are no further questions. Oh, I'm sorry. So the bullet entered the upper portion of his thigh on the inside of it, traveled through his leg, exited out and into the door to his left, if you will. So the trajectory would be down through his leg and out to the door. Clipped a little bit of the seat cushion. It hit the femoral artery. You got minutes when you hit that artery. And again, our deputies and the Good Samaritans, they tried their best. They got him to high ground. They got him to EMTs. They applied tourniquets. It just wasn't enough, unfortunately.
Did he try to apply tourniquets himself?
No, sir. Well, we always look at training. We always look at opportunities of learning in the most tragic incidents that we occur, right? So that's part of our normal process called the debriefing or an AAR, after action review, and we always take these into account. You know, we said it the other night, and I'll echo this statement as true as can be. This is a tragic accident, and sometimes you just can't prevent every accident from occurring. You know, it's you know, you could be driving home tonight and have a tragic accident occur to you. So you could be working around your pool. You could be, there's 1,000 ways tragic accidents. We see it all the time in our community, and this is a tragic accident. There's no other way to describe it. Please.
Well, I think support, you know, support from the community, support from one another. You're right, it has been a trying time for our RPD, but we will get through this. We're a resilient department. I think this is what Manny would have wanted for us to continue to do the work. Manny worked in the Community Affairs Bureau. He was, his charge was community policing. And I think, like I said, 22 years on the job, working nights, working the bar district. Manny had a knack for people. He loved to train. He loved what he did. And I think Manny would want us to continue to do the work of law enforcement and the work of this community. I saw some of the coverage, Manny talking to classrooms, students, kids. Manny would not, there wasn't anyone that Manny would not have had a conversation with. And he would give you the shirt off his back. He would do anything for you. So I'm proud of this department. I'm proud of the work that Manny did. And we will continue to honor his legacy by going out there doing the work for the good citizens of Rochester. And like I said, I can't thank the community enough for the support that they have given us the last couple of days. I've received so many text messages, emails, phone calls from people, other law enforcement agencies, the Sheriff's Department, you know, going to process that scene. It's not a tough scene when you do it for a fellow colleague. But certainly we're going to get through this. You know, we have trying times, trying moments. This job is tough, but we're going to get through this with the help of support, counselors, and everyone. So I can't thank this community enough for rallying behind the Rochester Police Department. Well, he worked, I'll have to double check, but Manny works Tuesday through Saturday. He worked Tuesday through Saturday, 7 at night to 3 a.m. We worked out of the Central section, which is downtown Rochester. He was assigned to the Community Affairs Bureau, and he worked for 22 years. And majority of his career was spent in Northeast Rochester. And like I said, I can't say enough good things about Manny, as we can see from the coverage throughout the weekend.
No, he did not. No. So I'm going to paraphrase, because I don't want to misspeak on behalf of the fiance, but he indicated that he had accidentally shot himself, and there wasn't much conversation after that. I don't believe so, Chief.
He did. He spoke to his fiance. He stated he had accidentally shot himself and that he was heading towards the hospital. As we can all understand her shock and her level of excitement at that time, she says, "What? What did you do? Where are you?" And Manny was unable to answer her. So the calls for the bystanders that were traveling behind him on Empire Boulevard was what led us to that location. So there were some people traveling in a couple cars behind him in the westbound direction on Empire Boulevard. They observed Manny's vehicle start to drift off the side of the road and eventually go down in the ravine. They called 911. One of those bystanders happened to be a registered nurse. They actually climbed down that ravine about 100 yards off the road and saw how much help Manny needed. Unfortunately, they weren't able to lift him out of the car, but they did communicate to 911 and provide that assistance for the deputies to be able to locate him quickly, because it was quite a ways down the ravine into the heavy, thick brush, and it could have been, had they not been there, it could have been several minutes before the deputies were able to actually locate that vehicle in the darkness. I'll add a little bit to that. As a bit of perspective here, the 4 deputies that actually went down the ravine, applied the tourniquets, and carried Manny up to the side of the road, of those 4, 3 of them went through the academy with Manny as their instructor. He was their training officer during their police academy. So they personally recognized him right away and knew the gravity of the situation, and clearly they have to deal with that now. So not only his fellow coworkers and his family with RPD, but those first responders that were on scene personally knew Manny, and that takes its toll. But as an agency and as a community, first responders community, we have to prepare for those things, and we do that, and we follow up with our members, and we provide those assistance programs and those peer support programs that help them process this and try to find their way back to work the next day. No, he was not. He was in his personal clothes, personal weapon, personal car.
If I could just add, the night of the incident, what we did was we opened up in collaboration with the Locust Club, the Union Hall over on Lexington Avenue, and we had officers who wanted to mourn, celebrate Manny's life there with counselors, clergy, and we did the same thing yesterday over at Central Section. So it's an ongoing process. You know, it's a process that will continue to evolve, and we'll have our supervisors, and just, you don't have to be a supervisor. You can just be a member, a sworn or non-sworn member of the department, just to ask, how is someone doing? How are you doing? You know, just sometimes that simple question can elicit a response, and just to talk. I think a lot of times in law enforcement, we hold things in. We hold things in. And I think what we can do is just talk to one another about who Manny was. You know, the worst thing we can do is act like it did not happen. So we have to remember who Manny was, and I think we do that through counseling, through talking, and I think we will continue to do that. You know, it's just not something that we will get over today, tomorrow. You know, this is a person that we're talking about. This is a member of our family, and our job, my charge is to make sure that the rest of this department is taken care of.
We would have to check with them. We'd love to, and we normally do recognize folks like that throughout the year, citizens that do well in our community in all different facets, let alone this particular case. So that'll be totally up to them, but we'd love to share them with you. They did good work, and we'd like to recognize them, but that'll be up to them. Fiance. Yes.
I can get that for you. Yep.
No, we will never know exactly where the gun was at the time. All we know is based on the trajectory of the bullet, where the angle was, because he was seated in the car. We can backtrack that bullet trajectory. So it started somewhere up around his waistband, where you know, so that's where most people would carry an in the waistband type holster. Again, I don't want to speculate on that. I'm just saying the trajectory, what we know by the fact pattern, what we know by physical evidence, is the bullet entered in a trajectory from his waist. But first entry wound was actually through his pant leg, on his left leg, on the outside of the leg going in. So, you know, we know just reverse trajectory where the gun was when it went off. There was a holster, yes. So somewhere after the incident, Manny was able to not only call his fiance, but also reholster the weapon. The weapon was in the holster when we recovered it. That's it, folks. Thank you very much.